those of you who got an invite, welcome to NerdProm.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen. Nerds International proudly presents.
We want to take you on a quest for knowledge. One that will take us from ancient medieval fantasy across the far reaches of space to the distant future. To many savage worlds.
Welcome to the Wild Die Podcast, episode 43. This is a podcast dedicated to Pinnacle Entertainment's Savage Worlds, aimed at beginners and veterans alike. Good morning, Eric. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm all right. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. I'm feeling... Well, actually, no. No, I'm feeling very...
Over again.
I'm feeling very sad. I feel let down. Gary's not here. Manuel's not here. Gary said he was...
Yeah, what's going on?
I don't know. I don't think they like us. But it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but surprise, right? We were supposed to have the Kings of Convenience, and well, we knew ahead of time that Manuel couldn't make it, so we decided to switch it with another episode. And it's going to be about what, Harrison?
Ranting today, so we're going to be getting off our chest. You know, we asked the listeners what really grinds their gears about Savage Worlds and what really annoys them, and so we've collated all of their annoyances about Savage Worlds, and we're going to read those out, discuss them, and then we're going to talk about what annoys us. Sometimes it's good just to have a bit of therapy. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
that was my thought behind it. I mean, first of all, there's a friend that called me out on saying that we were big homers on this show, that we always said nice things about Savage Worlds and cheerleaders and that type of thing, which, it's true. But it's also true that there are things that we don't like about it and things that annoy us. And the reason why we haven't really discussed the rants and the things we don't like, for me, it's personal preference. I see a lot of negative opinions, and people like to whine, right? And you go over on the internet, and that's all you read, and it doesn't. Most of the time, it doesn't do any good. And I guess this episode's not going to do any good, maybe to us, right?
But
we're going to feel better, maybe.
Yeah, but we're going to do it anyway.
And and the second reason is, as some of you may know, I do a little bit of work in the industry, and I'm a partner with Mornay at Just Insert Imagination. So personally, I wouldn't like anybody saying anything, coworker or saying anything bad about what we write. I think it's kind of unprofessional. So that's the second reason why I've been holding off on that. But I'm at a point right now where I don't care.
I think, to an extent, sometimes it's important to be critical about something that you like, so that you can know how to do it better. If you know the flaws and things of a certain system that you use, then it can be you can know how to actually GM better or be a better player, because you know where the things the system doesn't do well is what it does well, and I think it's important to know those things. It's not going to be us just having a whine and being crybabies about it. We're going to have fun and actually hear people's criticisms. These aren't all actually that bad. Some of them are, but yeah, we'll get into that later.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, judging from the response we got from just asking that question, I mean, I've asked a couple questions before and hardly got any replies, or we never get any feedback for this show. Well, I wouldn't say never, but we don't get a whole lot. But ask people to whine, and I don't know, we got probably over 50, 60 replies just for this question alone. So people like to complain, and we're going to do that, and we're going to criticize a little bit. And it's important that nobody takes it personal. I mean, obviously, if we do this show twice a month minimum, we must like the system. So anyway, we got some feedback. A friend of mine, Ron, been catching up with the show and wanted to submit his own one-sheet setting idea, even though the contest is over, Ron. But
that was
it's
like
all good.
2 months ago, man. What's wrong with you? But that's fine.
So, he's got a good idea.
Yeah, so here's one-sheet setting. It goes like this. A green glowing meteor streaks across the southern night skies. Meanwhile, the New Orleans Asylum for the Criminally Insane is having their annual Halloween party. The meteor crashes into the asylum and the radiation from the broken meteor changes the inmates. It imbues them with superpowers. They escape the asylum and make their way to New Orleans where they save the day. So, you have criminally insane rednecks with superpowers in a populated city. What could possibly go wrong? Suggested Savage Worlds books: Savage Worlds Deluxe, Necessary Evil, Superpowers Companion, Horror Companion. What I like about that is he's kept it short and he's kept it sweet. That's something I like, and also it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it reminds me of Con Air a little bit, and Con Air meets, I don't know, Superman or something. I'm not a big comic book guy, so
me neither.
I just said Superman because it's the most well-known one, right? Or Batman.
Superpowers, Superman, whatever. But what would they save the day necessarily? When I read it, I thought maybe you would just go out there and kill people with your superpowers. See, he's saying that the meteor crashes.
Well, unless maybe the meteor made them good persons inside.
No, I don't think so. I think I would alter it so that the meteor crashes into the asylum, and then they get superpowers, and they go on a massive killing spree.
Yeah, and then they become the villains for this campaign.
Yeah,
and the good guys are the guards that were also mutated.
Yeah, and you can play either side.
And they're chasing them. Yeah,
that'd be fun.
Good stuff.
Cheers, Ron.
Thank you, Ron.
And we also had a follow-up to the big debate about multi-action penalties, about if you could shoot a gun with one hand, shoot a gun with another hand, throw the gun, kick the enemy in the nuts, and then burp out a spell. Tom Laporta comes in. He says, I think you guys are wrong about the shoot, throw, kick, burp. While I see Clint's point... Christ. While I see Clint's point about using the same hand twice, I don't think it applies cleanly here. I would rule that since 2 hands and a foot are being used, the throw is right out. I would rule that other actions are possible and would make it a -6, so it's not likely to work, but you're certainly welcome to try.
We were wrong. Clint is wrong. Well, we already established that last episode, right? So there you go. You could rule it like that, Harrison.
Okay, good. Well, that's it. That makes it even more likely to work then.
-6. Yeah. Do it.
Clint, you need to sort it out, mate.
Thanks, Tom.
Cheers, Tom.
He's got it figured out. All right. And now on to Savage Worlds news, or Nerds International and Wild Eye.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the news. The news is incoming. Prepare yourself for the news. News! And some announcements about the Nerds International Network and the Wild Eye podcast.
A reminder, NIVCon, our own little online convention that we got planned, that's still coming up next month. This is March, weekend of March let me double check for sure. I think it's 8th. 10 and 11. All right, so March 10th and 11th. There's a bunch of games being run. Some of them are Savage Worlds, but mostly it's a lot of different stuff. So, Harrison, you're running some Call of Cthulhu?
Yes, right? I am, and I feel very guilty about it. I'm sorry, listeners. I shouldn't be doing that. But I am. I'm running Call of Cthulhu.
You'll learn.
No, I'm a bad person.
If you want to game with the nerds and some members of this podcast, I know, so there's Harrison. Manuel's running a couple games, is Savage Shadowrun, and then the Swift D12 system. This is Richard Wolcock's system. And Gary's running some type of game with index cards, so you can check that out. Moving on, Bullets over Frisco Bay.
Yes.
This has been out for a couple weeks now. Now, if you're a longtime listener to the show, almost 2 years ago, well, a year and a half ago, 2015, during the summer, I had just gotten on the show, and I had this crazy idea of why don't we get together, find a good idea for a short adventure, short scenario, and ask the community to get together and create it. So we came up with this idea of a hostage situation in the 70s, and we asked our listeners if they wanted to help out with that. And at first, I was the manager, and we got a bunch of people. We got a good response to this. Some contributed better than others, but it took a while. Then I kind of took over the show, and I didn't have time to take care of that project. So I handed it over to our good friend Stefan Dragonspawn, and he got everybody together to finish this. We've got Frank Turfler from Middle Kingdoms, who did the maps for this, gorgeous maps. Stefan, Eli Kurtz from the Mythic Gazetteer wrote this scenario. Colin Kendrick, another listener, well, he used to. Apparently he doesn't anymore, so maybe I shouldn't mention his name, but anyway, he helped out with that quite a bit too, with the stats. Then Richard Wilcock did the editing and layout. Dragonspawn also illustrated, and of course Carl Kiesler with the cover for this. So it's a short little adventure. It's been play tested. It will run you a good 2 or 3 sessions usually. It comes with pre-gens, like I said, the maps, and if you play on Fantasy Grounds, John Steve, who was on the show before, made a Fantasy Grounds module for that. So I'm going to add the link to this zip bundle in the show notes so you can check it out. It's totally free, and it's made by and for the community, with some guest appearances from people in the industry. Like I said, Richard Wilcock and Frank Turfler, Eli Kurtz, Carl Kiesler. So it's pretty good.
It's amazing. I just want to say you're forgetting one very, very important guy who contributed probably the most out of anyone. Yours truly. I wrote a sentence. Yeah, I wrote a sentence in this.
Yep.
Come on, man.
Yeah, it was you too. It was some from Nick. Paris Conte helped out a little bit too with some ideas, and
yeah, but I mean,
like I said, a bunch of people.
Forget Nick and Paris. But I just wanted some congratulations for the sentence I wrote. Was it a good sentence?
Yeah, it was well put together.
Thank you very much. That's all I wanted, man. All this time. I spent months on that sentence.
Thank you so much, Harrison, for making Bullets Over Frisco Bay the success that it has been.
Thank you. Thanks, man. Oh, God. I feel like I'm gonna cry. And let's talk about the contest. The hardcover color Saga of the Goblin Horde. You can win that, and all you need to do is send in your 16-line Goblin songs, and I will make the top 3 winners into a song. The first prize, as I mentioned, is the hardcover color copy of Saga of the Goblin Horde. Second prize is
$10 gift certificate to RPG Now and Drive-Thru RPG.
And third prize is, well, you just get a song made for you. But that's still cool.
Yep.
Send those in to thewilddie@gmail.com.
You have until March 1st.
Exactly.
Time is running out.
Right.
Yep. And finally, last bit of news, we hit the $75 goal on Patreon. And what that means is that we get a celebrity GM to come on the show and run their game for us. So next month, it should be out by the end of February. We have Scott Woodard, creator of Savage Flash Gordon, who's going to be on the show and run Flash Gordon for us. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, you guys get to hear that with a nice little actual play that Harrison will put together from this.
Yes, I can't wait. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah, we can get on with the show now, and we're going to start slowly with the mailbag. So open the books.
Now, little Jimmy, you know what time it is?
Is it really?
Why, yes. It is that time indeed. It's time to open up the books.
Yes.
So, go over to Grandpa's bookshelf and go and pick any book you like. And we'll open it up and we'll have a good look inside.
What about this one?
No, not that one. No, that's Grandpa's special book for his alone time.
Oh, okay, what about this one?
No, not that one either. That's... No, you know what, in fact, bugger off. Go away. No, I don't want to do this anymore.
Oh.
Open up the books.
We've got a question in from a person called Conrad, and he says, "Hi. So here is a rules question that is more beginner level that I'm pondering currently. In D&D, there used to be an extra damage bonus when using a two-handed weapon with both hands. Is there something similar in Savage Worlds, or is it just the damage die of the two-handed weapons is higher to represent that extra force that you put in with two weapons? Greetings, Conrad."
Well, thank you, Conrad. Well, in the book and in the core rules, there isn't, not to my knowledge anyway, but it could be some obscure sentence tucked away, but I don't think it is the case. However, I know of an edge in Beasts and Barbarians. I think it's called 1 hand and a half. And that's when you use a one-handed weapon with 2 hands, and with this edge you can gain either a +1 to parry or a +1 to on your attack roll, and you can switch between the two from round to round. So that's the closest thing. But no, as for the rules in the book, it's basically if you look at the die types for two-handed weapons that you can get up to D10, that's where you get your extra damage. I would imagine, although it's been debated that it's better to have a D8 than a D10 for some reason. I don't know. It's some type of experiment, I think, that Richard did with his calculating machines and his algorithms. So there you go.
Very good. And that is it for the mailbag. So if you guys want to get in touch, then you can always email us or get in touch on Facebook or Gmail or whatever. So we'll give the contact details at the end of the show. But we're always open to questions, so please do get in touch. But for now, we're going to take it to the edge and get on with your rants. Yeah.
You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast. You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast. You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast. You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast.
Listen to the Wild Die Podcast. Listen to the Wild Die Podcast. Listen to the Wild Die Podcast. Listen to the Wild Die Podcast.
Alright, guys. It's time to get angry. Right, I'm just gonna really... Right, the first one comes in from Angus MacDonald. He says, "How about the unskilled rule? Like a college boy who can't hide his hands scrabble roots, SW tries to dress up for the front office while its weird west drawers are still flapping out the backside. Let's divide the universe of actions that matter into different skills. Okay, I can imagine why you would want a single skill to cover all aspects of living in an urban environment. Streetwise covers carousing and buying the right tofu, but why doesn't it cover gambling? I can imagine why you'd want a single skill to cover all aspects of outdoor living. Survival covers digging pit traps to find clean water, but why doesn't it cover tracking?" Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, that's
why?
Exactly, Eric. No, I think it's
Why?
I think it's a good point. It does seem odd that in certain aspects the skills are grouped together, while some aren't. And then you see, like in Flash Gordon, where they've grouped athletics, so like climb and certain things are now grouped together. and then people are like, "Why have you grouped that together?" And it's just bizarre. I think sometimes when you make skills too broad, it becomes annoying. But when you separate them out too much, that also becomes annoying. It's like a fine line to walk, isn't it?
Some skills you can get a lot of use out of because they're kind of broad, and then you get something like gambling where it only applies to that. But then you have lock picking that you can use for locks or fine manipulation, manual manipulation too, or bypassing security, that type of thing. Some even use it to hotwire a car, while others use repair. And repair is very, very broad. And then you have tracking and gambling that you only use for that. So it is an odd list, and maybe it comes from its roots, like he said, where you can see that it's from Deadlands, because gambling is important in Deadlands, but unless you play that game, you're not going to use it much, right? I mean, we used it when we played Lightmar, but that was just one time. I think that's probably the only time in all these years that I've seen anybody use gambling outside of Deadlands. So
yeah, I always find that if a player in my game takes gambling, because it's such a specific skill, I feel sorry for them if they've taken it. So I have to put some gambling into the game. Like if they go into a bar, I always go, oh, you can see some people gambling over in the corner, and then the player will go, oh, cool, I want to gamble, because I put two points in this.
Yeah, I think it becomes a way for the player to tell the GM, I'd like to see that happen in the campaign because my character is good at it and likes to do that stuff, right? But at the same time, don't you want to create a character that fits in the campaign too? I mean, I guess there are different styles, right? Some GMs will just be like, create your characters, whatever, and I'll put something together from the characters you create, and then you have the pre-made modules or GMs that will come in and say, all right, this campaign is going to be about fighting hordes of goblins, and then it's kind of the player's problem. If they put the gambling skill in there, they pick the gambling skill, then they're the ones shooting themselves in the foot, I think. But
that's a good point, yeah. Next up, we had a video from Andrew Swanson about the players not using any of the combat options.
I don't know how many players I ran into that don't utilize the rules in the damn book. Whether it's using tricks or test of wills or push, grapple, all sorts of things that you can do. Wild attack, called shots, aiming. They don't touch any of it. All they think about is having a good fighting or good shooting, and that's your bread and butter, and that's all you do. And that's it. They don't use any of the fun stuff. Any of the stuff that I think defines the system as a good combat system and a good set of rules.
That's an age-old problem about players not reading the book, though, isn't it? They're never going to know any of the combat options. I think that's not necessarily a problem with Savage Worlds, because players are never going to read the bloody book. They're not going to read it. And they're never going to know all the combat options. And there's so many in Savage Worlds as well. I think that's part of what makes it great, all the combat options, because strategically you have so many different options. But I always feel as if it's kind of annoying because it's the GM's job to memorize all of them. And I always find that whenever I'm playing, it'll be like one of my players will say, right, I want to do this, and then I'll have to go, okay, I'd call that a wild attack, or that would be maybe, okay, you guys get a gang up bonus because you're next to each other, or that would be a push, so it works like this, or that's a grapple, so it works like this, and things like this. So it's kind of the way the players, that they would tell me what they want to do, rather than them knowing the different options available to them. And I think that's kind of annoying, but that's more of a general problem rather than Savage Worlds, because people they never bloody read the book, do they? But then some of the guys at my table in this current game, they know what they're talking about, which is really nice. But in general, it's not the case, is it?
Yeah, that's been my experience. I believe it's kind of the GM's responsibility to expose the players to these new options that they might not be used to from coming from another game. Basically, use those options against them, and then they'll get curious and they'll want to look it up and use them themselves when they see how effective they are. But that said, there are some options that are less, how should I say? Well, they don't work as well as they used to now that the shake and rolls, shake and recover has changed. I mean, unless there's a good chance you're kind of new to Savage Rolls, so if I say new shake and roll to you, it doesn't mean anything. But a few years back, it used to be that shaken, when you roll to recover, just a success meant that you were no longer shaken, but you still couldn't act in the same round. And then they changed it that just as a success, you could act. You were no longer shaken and could act. And because of that, tricks. I mean, you give a -2 to parry to your opponent, and if you roll raise, they're also shaken, which could kind of create that stun luck thing where you could control mobs better that way. And because that rule has changed now, it feels like tricks aren't as useful as they used to be, or certain powers that gave the shaken condition to people isn't as useful. So I could see now that people are less likely to use them, but apparently it looks like they're addressing the issue with the new rules for Savage Worlds Black, that we get a preview in Flash Gordon. So we'll see how that works. I haven't tried them myself, but yeah, I mean, I hear Andrew's complaint there, and it's true. Because when you don't use those tactics, the combat becomes a bit boring, right? It's just I swing, I miss, I swing, I miss. So
exactly, and I feel like so many of the combat options in Savage Worlds are really fun to use, and they open up the game in terms of strategy, But anyway, moving on. Oliver Redgrave, he comes in and he says, reading the effing chase rules was like having a stroke, and the whole thing's in capitals as well. So Jesus, yeah, I've got to agree with them there. They're bad. They're real bad. I mean, I'm not saying the rules are bad, because I don't want to be another person adding to that, and I've said it before in this podcast, because the rules are fine when I've played them. I'm similar to him. I find them hard to comprehend, so I just don't use them. People might have seen, I recently converted an adventure, fourth edition adventure called Dusk, and in that there is a chase scene, and I did some different rules for it. So if anybody wants to look at that, then they can, because I did kind of a different way of doing it to make it a more combat action scene. So that's a kind of a different way of doing it. I mean, people will probably hate it because it's naff.
Cool. And then Luis Pineda, well, not really a retort to that, but it was further down the comments. He says, the only thing that really gets me is when players complain about the chase rules. Look, I'm not going to do a round by round mini car game, so I'm with them. The thing with chases, and I keep saying that, and I guess it doesn't matter, but you have it needs context to make sense. Without context, the rules, I agree, make no sense. But once you put that into a fun, dynamic environment, everything starts making sense. And of course, if you're expecting a race, the chase rules aren't race rules; they're chase rules. But I like them, but I understand a lot of people don't, and they're wrong, and it's okay.
All right, next up, a person called Genesis Lover 71 comes in. It says his name's Jamie Pearson. He says Benny Mechanic, and how it's said that it's an economy that should always be flowing. To me, it's just non-stop success that way. I hate that. Failure is awesome. Captain Negative over here.
Who cares about that guy, really?
Yeah, exactly. Who cares what he thinks? He abandoned Savage Worlds. He left it in the dirt.
Yep.
You see the other day...
to read chicken entrails and tea leaves.
Exactly. So Jamie famously, I don't know if he'll want me to tell the listeners, but Jamie obviously used to host this show, and he's now selling all of his Savage Worlds books on eBay.
Yep.
I know. And guess what he's
Judas.
playing? Guess what he's playing now, listeners? Genesis, a game where you have to roll 100 dice and interpret them like tarot cards.
That's right. No, but I mean, I get his point, and I guess the part of Benny economy is that if you only give out bennies, but you don't put the players and their characters in situations where they have to use them, that's not an economy. You're just giving out bennies. But if you can gauge how much difficulty they have with a certain challenge, and then just give out some next encounter, it helps. But if you just role play for 3 hours and give everybody 3 bennies for jokes, and then you have a final encounter and it's just one bad guy, of course they're going to blow through it. So
yeah,
there you go, Jamie.
They should be having challenges throughout the game which require them to spend bennies. I mean, even if you're doing the roleplay sections, I mean, there should be bits where they have to have vital clues and they're up their persuade rolls or things like this. I don't know, something like that. Or there's bits they really, really feel as if they need to investigate. You've got to find some way to have those challenges in there, whether it be combat, whether it be investigation. It doesn't matter, anything. But you can do it. It should always be flowing, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're flowing bennies down to them. It can be that it's flowing in either direction. So yeah,
it goes in both directions, and to me, it's bennies and Benny economy has always been the most I wouldn't say obscure, but difficult mechanic in Savage Worlds, where even after 10 years now, it's still something you don't get exactly right. It's something you get a feel for, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and you realize that you've handed out too many bennies and made the next encounter too easy, and sometimes you realize that maybe you should have handed a couple more bennies in the previous encounter, because obviously right now you're experiencing what is close to a TPK, and the players could really use the bennies to get out of the pickle. Or if you play horror, then maybe that's exactly what you needed right now, and everybody's dying, and they should, because it was supposed to be a tough encounter. So
next one comes in from Rich Finder. He says, this isn't necessarily a problem with Savage Worlds, but it's a result of the mindset instilled that raises are awesome. It drives me insane when an attack raises like crazy and then you do minimal damage. Extremely anticlimactic. I'd agree with that one.
I agree.
Yeah, I hate that.
What's up with that?
Yeah, it's annoying that I get it from a gameplay standpoint, and it works perfectly in my eyes, that no matter how many raises you get on an attack, you add 1d6, right? And that's fine. It works perfectly. It's just the amount of times everyone at the table's been cheering because they get 1 million raises on an attack and then suddenly 2 damage because they roll 1 on both attack dice or whatever. Or it's like
it's the same thing about sucking damage. But I think what has helped me deal with that, and I know someone is going to call it weak sauce, but it's a hi Jamie, it's a mental shift that you have to make, where in Savage Worlds you do your attack roll, you do your damage roll, and then you have the soak part that's kind of optional. And what happens is that we're used to narrating those results separately. You narrate the hit. All right, you scored a raise. That's a critical. You hit him in the head with your sword. And then you go on, the player rolls his damage and rolls 1, 1, and 2, which is 4 damage, which probably won't do anything at all, not even a shaken. And then you're left with trying to come up with something interesting that would explain why he got hit on the head and only dealt 4 damage. And then, well, in this case, you don't need the soak sequence, but imagine that you'd roll, I don't know, 12 damage, which would be shaken and a wound, and if the guy's an extra, he's dead. But then the GM decides to spend a penny to soak damage on the extra, soaks all the damage, and now nothing happens. And they're left trying to narrate each of these parts separately. But once you wait until all 3 phases are complete to narrate what happened, it makes perfect sense. And there's nothing anticlimactic about it. There's a build-up during that phase where the player is rolling high that, gets them at the edge of their seat. But what's with that in a way? I mean, doesn't it create excitement in the game? Isn't that why we play games, to be excited, and ups and downs? That's what happens in good storytelling. So that's just how I look at it now.
Yeah, I get that, and from a storytelling perspective, I think that makes perfect sense. It's just I think it's kind of anticlimactic from a sort of gameplay fun perspective. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's all it is. And I think that sometimes I guess players and DMs kind of need to get that out of their head, because you got to understand that that's not always going to be the case with this game, and that's just it. But yeah, I totally get I get what he's saying, and I totally understand that. I've been there many a time. It's just a shame, but there's an edge, isn't there, that allows you to re-roll damage. Did I dream that? With Benny's.
Yeah, it's no mercy. No mercy, or the setting rules. There's a setting rule for that too. So blood and guts.
Yeah, so if you wanna re-roll damage, just take the no mercy thing, and then maybe that won't be so anticlimactic if you're a player anyway. Next one, Konrad Erasmus Neubert. So I am really annoyed with the necessity to come up with just so many trappings all by myself. The mechanics like combat options, edges, powers, dramatic tasks, social conflicts, skills, and so on allow and encourage wrapping and modifying them all with trappings. But straight out of the core rules, there are only sparse examples and barely any tools for doing that. The only exception is the power trapping examples, but even those I find hard to read and adapt. Yes, I am very lazy that way. Or to put it differently, the system was advertised to me to be the perfect fit for a working parent GM with the little time to prep stuff. In some ways, that is very true, but now I find myself needing to create the power trappings or edge trappings. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, you are lazy, Conrad.
Yeah.
You're lazy.
You are lazy.
No. I mean, I get his point, because you pay for an RPG book and you pay to have the work done for you, right? Yeah. I mean, most books, that's what you get. Most of us are tinkerers. We create stuff, and if we had the time, we'd create our own RPG, right? We don't. We spend money because someone else did the work for us, and that's what we expect to get. Like, you don't buy parts and build your own car, and most people don't, because they don't know how to. They'll buy one that's already put together. So I get his point, but
I've never really found the trapping thing difficult enough to me where I found that to be a problem. I buy setting books. I often make my own settings when I'm doing a long campaign, simply because that's what I like to do. But my point is that I often buy the setting books because I like to get inspired by them. But with trappings, I've never found that to be a difficult thing to come up with. I don't know. I find that's the easiest part. So that being a lack of in there, like, for example, when we're playing Solomon Kane, there's not really a distinction between like black and white magic like there is in something like Lankmar. Yeah, you've got like voodoo and then regular magic, right? So there's that kind of thing. But my point is like there's not like the healing magic and then the other magic is like lumped into two different categories. And I said to Pete, if you want to be like a white mage, then you can, by all means, just sort of have those trappings. Just be a healing mage and just pick all of those types of spells, or things like this.
Yeah.
And if you want to just go ahead and rename a spell, like when we played Deadlands, he wanted to be essentially Ryu from Street Fighter, because he was a martial artist, and so he took the bolt power and he just renamed it Hadouken. That's as simple as it is for me with trappings, I feel.
Yeah, to me that was one of the selling points, trappings with Savage Worlds, and sometimes it can take a little bit to really get it, how it works, but yeah, I mean, it is extra work, especially if you want to add mechanical benefits to those trappings. You have to think about it, and they only give out a few examples in the book, but I think maybe he's referring to a lot about trappings in general, because you can trap pretty much anything, gear, skills, edges and hindrances. You can trap everything in Savage Worlds, but if you just read the book, that isn't clear to you at all. It's only once you start hanging out on the forums or online and asking questions or listen to podcasts or YouTube shows that this becomes apparent to you. And then you start to realize how much potential trappings have. But it should be part of the book. There should be a section that tell you how to make your own trappings for other things. So it's kind of a read between the lines. Just like he says, you have to do that work. So, how about a book with just trappings, a book of trappings that would help a lot of people, right?
I think that would be really handy. Like, that's a great idea. Just a whole book where it's just, maybe you could have a whole page of just different versions of the bolt spell, for example. That'd be amazing. The next one is from Carlin of the Hill People Kendrick. Odd as it sounds, the more I GM, the more I get pissed off at soaking damage. When you deal out damage and every single time it gets soaked, so neither damage nor shaken status is given, and the players turn to you at the end of the game and say, I never felt like I was in danger because I could just prevent the damage. I want to just do away with the whole mechanic, take my wound tokens, peons, fear my GM wrath.
See, now that's a rant. He sounds angry, huh?
That's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of stuff.
I think we already touched on that a little bit, and I agree. It happens.
It does happen. I mean, that's that again. Like I say, it is with the whole Benny thing, and we did touch on that earlier. We've been through this as well on our previous episode. There was an episode that we made called Anticlimactic Boss Battles, and we spoke to Florian and Paris on that episode. If you want to get some good challenging encounters, I would highly recommend listening to that episode. And I'm not saying because I said anything decent on there, but everyone else gave some really, really, really good tips on there. And it ends up being like a very, very good way. If you want your players to feel like they're in danger and you want to create some really interesting encounters, have a listen to that, because you won't ever feel like your players are not in danger ever again. They're going to be crying.
Yeah, it's funny. That's always something that comes up, and even on that Facebook post or maybe it was on G+. Anyways, so someone said my encounters are too easy, and the other one started off by saying, I just killed all the PCs in the first game. So it seems like people don't experience the game the same way at all. For some people, it's very deadly, and for some people, it's too easy, and it's hard to find the middle ground. I know for me, the shift started when I started playing dirty and using tactics against the players and their characters. Before, it was also always felt too easy. And then I made that shift, and now sometimes I have to hold back and not spend my GM bennies because yeah, everybody might die, which isn't really bad. But if you want any kind of sustained campaign, if you keep killing everybody all the time, it's not going to work. But like when we played Warhammer, Savage Warhammer, there was 6 players and 3 of the characters within 6 to 8 sessions. They had died. The people were playing new characters, so it's just finding the middle ground, and that comes with experience. It comes with knowing your players also, and experimenting, and probably half of that is just luck, because it's just the nature of the dice. So I embrace that. I like the swinginess part of it, because you really don't know what to expect, and I think that makes for great storytelling. But I can understand why it leads to frustration for some people.
I agree. The next one we got in is from Zovia RPG Maps Vey, and she says, "Savage is extremely offensive. It should be culturally challenged worlds." Shut up. Stop being silly.
No, I mean, come on, people. It's 2018. We have to be, conscious of people's sensibilities, and you can't offend people with a word like savage. Aren't they called Native Americans?
So Eric Buchanan comes in. He says, "I'd like to see better rules for vehicles. Both of the rule sets given to handle vehicle combat just feel clunky and really slows down the game. As a GM, I break out in a cold sweat when my players want to use any vehicles in combat." What do you think of the vehicle rules?
I do too.
I don't really. I don't really use them.
No, I don't. I don't like them. I don't like that turn template thing. I don't understand. I've tried to make sense out of it so many times, counting the little notches on the template, and you read the example and it doesn't add up. And what if you don't have your toy cars at the table, or you don't want to play it that way? It just seemed too clunky to me. I don't think I've ever used them. I just go chase rules, or I just don't put encounters with vehicles in the game.
Yeah, I usually just abstract them out, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, you just wing it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just wing it, basically.
If you listen to the podcast, and again, I'm going to plug another podcast that we did, but there's an actual play on this channel called Punted in the Bunts. If you listen to that, there is a vehicle section in there where, again, I abstracted it out a little bit, and it was just, they were shooting at this other car and stuff, and it was the way I basically did it was if they scored enough damage on the car and things like this, or if he scored well on his driving and things like this, then I would allow what he was trying to do to happen, just things like that. I never really went on the full rules.
Yeah, to me, I kind of used mountain combat rules where people, in mounted combat, you just use your steed, the pace, and then you can get dismounted and that type of thing. And I guess I just use something like that, but you're in a vehicle instead. And then you have cover depending on where you're sitting in the car, and the windows, are they, bulletproof or that type of thing? And is it a faster vehicle than the other? Is it more is it sturdier? Does it have weapon on it? And just wing it.
Yeah, exactly. Much easier. Next up, we had a pretty funny exchange on Facebook. Giuseppe Rotondo, famous writer, he comes in, he says, I think the thing I like the least is the PowerPoint's default rules, especially the recharge. And then Eric says, "Come on, Giuseppe, tell us how you really feel about that stupid rule. Where's the rage? Where's the passion?" And then Giuseppe comes back and he says, "Okay, I admit it. I snap pencils every time a player asks, how much time has passed? How many PPs have I got now?"
Yes.
You know what?
Oh, that made me laugh.
I do have to agree. As much as the rule makes sense to me, and the recharge thing is good in terms of gameplay, it's so annoying, man. There are certain people at my table who I'm dreading the day that they play a magic user, because they will be asking every 5 minutes. And that's why I'm liking Solomon Kane at the moment, because first up, you use components to cast spells. And second of all, they cost a fortune. Well, because like they're 50p, right? Which is that's basically like $50, like, or whatever. That's a lot of money in Solomon Kane. Anyway, they're really struggling for money in that game, and it's 50p a component. I think if I'm not mistaken. And so they're really struggling for components and for money. So for me, it sort of alleviates that sort of asking every 5 minutes. How much time has passed? And it's like, shut up.
Yeah, you do hear that question a lot when you play with that rule.
Yeah, that's why as well, especially hucksters in Deadlands as well, because don't they recharge slower?
Yeah, it depends.
But anyway, so just, magic users out there, the GM will tell you when time has passed, so shut up.
That's right. A new encounter, something happens. All right, well, 4 hours have passed since you last used your PowerPoint.
I usually wait till they get to like downtime or something like this. And once they finish the downtime, I go, okay, you've done that. You've taken about 4 hours, doing your shopping or whatever. You've had your rest, so you've rested for about an hour or whatever. And then I'll go, right, so anyone who's got PowerPoints, you recover this amount, whatever. Something like that. So you don't need to ask. Next one comes in from John Niles. No index? Really needs an index. It does have an index.
Well, there is one.
It's just rubbish.
Yeah. It's hard to find what you need looking at that.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't even lead you to the right page. If I'm being honest, that's going to be bad because I can't give any examples. But I think I was trying to look something up the other day, and it gives you the page, but it's not the right page. And I can't. If any listeners know, remind me, because I can't remember what it was. But I looked up the thing in the index, then went to the page, and it wasn't there. And I can't remember what it was. That's really going to annoy me. But anyway, the point is, in addition to that, there's so many things that aren't listed there. For example, I can't even remember that either. I'm the worst host. But the point is,
you should have taken the notes.
Yeah, I should have. But there was something there that was like death. That's it, death. Right. So you go there and you look up death, and death isn't there. Right, but it's under incapacitation, and it's like, well, just put it under D, because what's the point? Like, obviously, players are going to look that up. Come on, it's just why they're just trying to be.
It is lacking.
Yeah, it's really lacking. But maybe they'll sort it out. It is lacking,
but that's when, to me, a PDF shines here, where you can hit Control F and then you type the word you're looking for, and you're gonna find it. But
totally. But then if you're at a table game, you can't do Control F. I find that the only reason that I know where stuff is in that book is because I've memorized the book, and I know where the stuff I usually look at is, and that's such an annoying thing. But it's a good thing it's a small book, because try doing that with Pathfinder. But that's actually got a good index. Yeah, we got one more. We got one more of these. So Paris Conte comes in and he says, not all edges are created equal. Some are wildly beneficial, others mildly useful.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at linguists and everybody plays fighters, I can understand why it's not really useful. I guess it depends on the context, right? A lot of these edges and hindrances are very generic on purpose, and then some of them will be more useful in some types of campaigns and others won't.
Can't remember who it was, but somebody followed up on the Facebook actually saying something like, this is why you should always ask your players to start with the concept first, rather than going through your characters and just saying, right, create a character, start with the points, start with this, blah, blah, blah. Start with the concept, go through the concept first, and then pick edges that fit it, because then you'll find they're not picking every single time Ilan, hard to kill. Because then you'll be like, hang on, You said your character's a librarian. Why is he hard to kill? Oh, he's covered in books. Shut up, you're not picking it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a problem with just Savage Worlds. I think any game has that, right? You look at feats or whatever, and you know that experienced players will go for certain feats and won't touch any the others, even if they look cool in practice. They're just not as effective. So
yeah, totally. And but you've got to have some in there that are in there just to fit certain character archetypes. You know what I mean? Like linguist, you know. But the thing is that it's there for a reason, because it fits a certain character archetype, but it's not necessarily the most beneficial in terms of gameplay. But let's say you want a character that uses that, then it's there for you. But some people like
let's
to
say
play
you're
flawed
playing
characters.
Like if you flawed, and also let's say you play I don't know, a sort of Realms of Cthulhu or something like that, linguists will become very useful in knowing all these languages, where I don't know, combat reflex might not be as useful because you're not likely to get in a fight at all, or block, or whatever combat edge will not be as useful because you don't fight. So
Right, exactly. All right, well, that's it for all of the... we picked the best ones out, to be honest, so whoever didn't get on this list...
And the shortest ones. Yeah. I know Richard Wilcock had a bunch of really good points, but...
too long.
It was too long, Richard. You've been on this show before. You know that everything too long, we don't read on the show.
Exactly. Now we're going to get into to our rants. We're going to talk about what really grinds our gears. So, Eric, how about you? What's up, man? What's getting you down?
Oh boy. So, before I do this, I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna rant about the Goon. This is a setting for Savage Worlds, and I'm not gonna name any of the writers or even which company it's from, because there's nothing personal about this. I think it's mostly a matter of my expectations versus what I got from it. I was a Kickstarter backer. It was ran perfectly. The books are gorgeous. It's quality material, but it wasn't what I was expecting. So there's, like I said, nothing personal. But the Goon is about mobsters in the 30s in this kind of weird dark noir universe, and there's zombies and all types of weird creatures, even some that are a bit like Cthulhu mythos creatures. There's a lot of humor. It is dark humor and bad language. Basically, it's not for kids, right? So when they announced that, I remembered having read one issue of the Goon a while ago, and then I watched. There's a YouTube video that's really funny, and it's really fun, and you read the comic and that movie, and you're like, man, this is perfect for Savage Worlds. So I got on board with this, and I even bought one of those tomes, the comic books, like the first tome, compendium. It's a huge book, and I really enjoy the comics. And I think you've read the comics too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. But so now I get this book. First I got it in PDF, and I was really excited and started reading it. And one of the first things I go to when I get a new setting is the setting rules, because knowing the vanilla rules, I just go, I know how they work, but I want to see how different it is in this setting, and what I will have to learn and unlearn to run this setting. Savage Worlds has hundreds of settings by now, so if I'm gonna play a lot of different settings, I want to play settings where it's going to be minimal work for me. So I look at the setting rules, and so I start counting here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, right?
What
wow,
the hell, man?
13 setting rules. Okay, so this means there's the rules changes or there are additions to the rules that I need to know now to run this setting. Now I know I'm being a bit of a douche, and I could just say I don't want to use any of them or very few of them, and pick and choose, and that's fine. But this, I hate that. I just don't want to have to learn that many new rules every time I play a new setting for Savage Worlds. And let's look at some of them that I really like, because that's basically how I run my games. But okay, the first one, anecdotal non sequiturs. All right, so I don't speak Japanese, and so I don't know what the hell that means. If I wanted to play a setting where I need a PhD to run it, I'd play one of Ken Height's games. All right, but I'm playing Savage Worlds right now. I want something I wouldn't say easy, but something accessible to me. So whatever that means, I read it, and okay, it's just how you start a scene, and characters are supposed to start in the middle of an anecdote and all that. Now, what the hell? You know, I don't need this. Read the comics and let the players play their characters however they want to play it. Then you got comedy or tragedy. So it's basically the tone of your session, and there's a setting rule for that. Do we need mechanics for that? It's, you know, hitting the sauce, that's rules for getting drunk. All right, fair enough. Characters get drunk in the series a lot, and that's cool. Then it's kind of a super setting too, so you get the knockback blows in there repeated, basically from the Superpowers companion, which is cool. Then magic and science, that's the new arcane backgrounds, and telling you that you can't use the ones in the book, which is fair. Then you get new powers in there. I don't know why that's part of the setting rules. Misery never dies. It's basically like heroes never die, but a bit different. Relics, shouldn't that be in the gear section? I don't know. Super strength. Then there's a new stat, virtue. I don't know how that works. And then you've got two tables there that ties back with the comedy or tragedy, where you have to roll on more tables in the middle, start what you're doing, and roll on a table in the middle of playing. And I hate that. I hate tables. I played Roll Master for 5-6 years as a teenager. I hated that part, and I don't want to do that now. But wait, now I keep reading, and I get in the GM section, and there's chapter 7 called More Setting Rules.
What?
Harrison,
what?
We need more setting rules for this, right? So you get what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more setting rules. So some more information on Misery Never Dies, tapping occurs, new powers, black magic, the spirit worlds, virtue revisited. So they did it a couple page earlier, but they have to touch on it again. I mean, this is very all discouraging for me. I guess I'm thinking you get a setting that you want to write, and you're thinking, hey, that's a great fit for Savage Worlds, and then you write it, and like I read this and I'm like, so if it is such a good fit for Savage Worlds, how come you need 19 setting rules to play this? Is it really a good fit?
I don't understand why it needed so many though, because I don't understand what the goon, like what you couldn't do in Savage Worlds. I just don't get it.
Vanilla, right?
Yeah.
Do you need that many new rules to play investigators or super versus zombies? You know, do you really need that many? I don't think so. Apparently I'm wrong, and I don't see a whole lot of people playing this game. You know, you get actual plays and people saying, I ran this game yesterday, and I don't think I've heard of one guy running it, and that's about it. And I don't know, maybe that's why. The thing with setting rules is, okay, if I'm only going to play the goon now, I don't have a problem learning all this because that's all I'm going to play. But now, you know, in 2 months I might want to run another setting, and I'm going to have to learn some new setting rules again. And I don't want to learn 19 every time I want to play a new setting, but because I'm the kind of guy that will run games at conventions or online, one shots. And one of the things I do before I run a game is explain the setting rules, the differences in the rules for the players, because I believe it's important for the players to have the information they need about this setting. And I don't mind going over a couple of them real quick, and that's cool. And I understand that you don't need to tell the players to explain all the setting rules, because not all of them are going to come into play, and that's fine. But it's waste of the time. You got 4 hours to play to explain that, because otherwise in the middle of the game someone will say, well, I didn't know that this rule had changed for this game. So that's my main gripe about it. But wait, I'm not done. So the other thing that I like about Savage Worlds in general is that you can get a sample of pretty much any setting and then just run it. So you'll get one sheets and pre-gens. In some cases, you have to buy the pre-gens, and I understand that's fine. But if a setting has both a free one sheet and free pre-gens, chances are I'm going to try it. I'm going to play it. And it is the case with the Goon. You can get a free one sheet, and there are pre-gens. If you were part of the Kickstarter, you got them for free. Otherwise, you have to buy them. And like I said, I don't have a problem with that. But now I was excited. I can't wait for the pre-gens. And for some reason, I think they were kind of some of the last rewards to get to you. So I get the pre-gens. And all right, you get the Goon in there, and Frankie and Buzzard and all the big characters in the comic books, and that's cool. But then there are more, and what I was hoping for was to get some pre-gens that are all equal, because the Goon and Frankie and all that, they're legendary. And then if you'd have to mix them up with characters that are heroic and veteran. I don't think there's a spider guy in there. I was hoping for just a set of not plain, but 5 or 6 pre-gens that are kind of equal and not non-canon characters that I could go into conventions with, or just try out with my group and play. And I didn't get that. So I know, a couple weeks ago, Gary just asked me, so when are we playing the Goon? Because he got it too. And I didn't say anything because the answer is never, Gary. The other thing too, and I know on this show we use bad language sometimes, but we try to keep it PG-13. And when we do, we bleep the bad words out. And I understand it can be annoying listening to this sometimes, but it's just a standard we're trying to meet, whether we meet it or not. That's your opinion. But okay, so if you read the comics, Goon, there's really bad language in there, and I was suspicious when I heard that this company was going to release it, because I know they have a strict policy against certain things. But they're clever people. I give them the benefit of the doubt. They'll do a good job with it. But now I opened this book, and the bad words are in there, but they've used like a marker and just scribbled over the bad words. And it is basically every other page, and especially with like the dialogues and stuff. And it just very annoying to me. Either just don't put the words in there to begin with, or do like Disney. I don't know. Disney doesn't show porn and then put little censor blocks on top of the porn because they just don't want to play porn. It's Disney. So if you feel that the language isn't good for your book, just, I don't know, don't do that setting, or don't put the words in there, because just that scribble in there, that looks ugly. I hate it, and it's bad. Yeah. I don't want that. So overall, it was a big letdown for me.
So overall, you just think it was a pretty terrible fit for Savage Worlds then? Oh no, actually, it was a good fit. It's just maybe they did a bad job with it.
Maybe. It's not for me to say. I mean, like I said, the book itself, I upgraded to the hardcover, and I'm just going through it right now. The layout, beautiful artwork, beautiful writing is good. Everything is high quality with this, but it felt like a major letdown for me. I was really disappointed with it. It was one of the Kickstarters that I spent the most money on, and I can't see myself playing this. It just makes me so angry. So that's my rant.
All right, so my rant is going to seem very, very petty in comparison to what you spoke about, and it's probably not going to take as long. So I'm sure the listeners will be glad about that. But I want to talk about this. So
sorry,
that's all right. I hear a lot of people on Savage Worlds Facebook and on Nerds International talk about graphic novel size, right? Talking about the books, the Savage Worlds books, and as a big fan of graphic novels, right? They're not graphic novel size. They're not. They're specifically, definitely not, right? But the point is that all of these Savage Worlds books, right? So they come in like a varying different size. So you buy from Pinnacle. I've got the Savage Worlds Deluxe Explorers Edition, right? So the small one, okay? So that comes in one size, and then in addition to that, I've got Lankmar, right, which comes in a different bloody size. My ETU books in a different size. My 50 Fathoms books, different size. What the hell, Pinnacle? So I'm looking over there now, and like that means that the way I've arranged my shelf, I can't have all my Savage Worlds books in the same place because they're all a different size. Now, I hear this people saying graphic novel size, and that bandied about all the time. And I was comparing them to my comic books for research, purposes for this episode, and none of them are the same size as a graphic novel, so that's rubbish. I don't know where they got that term from. So if you're gonna call it something, do your bloody research, Pinnacle. So I don't know why they've got three different standard sizes for their books, because that's really, really annoying, and none of them are the standard size of a regular RPG book. I don't know what's going on there. if you're a person who likes to have a neat looking shelf, then you can just kiss your proud shelf goodbye, because the thing is it's
if
just,
you have OCD, it's not gonna work.
Right, exactly. It really winds me up, because I've got my smaller Savage Worlds books at the end of my shelf, the mid-sized ones at near the end of the shelf, and then the sort of higher sized ones somewhere in the middle, and that annoys me, because all my Savage Worlds books aren't in one place. I know it's a dumb thing to rant about, but bloody hell, it annoys me.
I remember when I first got that graphic novel size. Well, that isn't apparently, but I think it was the Weird Wars Rome, and it just threw me off. I'm like, what's that size for? And it just doesn't fit on your shelf. I mean, it's a cute format, and I like it. It's just like you said, you get all these different sizes.
Yeah, so I like it too, and it's easy to transport as well, which is nice. But and then if you factor in as well, this isn't anything to do with Pinnacle, but then if you factor in as well with the third party publishers doing weird sizes as well, oh mate, it's the worst. It's the absolute worst, because at least Just Insert Imagination do it with the standard bloody size, like everyone should do. Like, just bear that in mind. If you're a third-party publisher, do standard size, or I'm gonna get you. All right.
Oh boy. Well, you're gonna be disappointed with Wise Guys when it comes out.
Oh no. You do graphic novel size, and it's gonna be like on a pad of post-it notes.
Yeah, and it's gonna be landscape too.
What?
Like Mouse Guard. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man, yeah, Mouse Guard. Actually, that annoys me, but that I'll talk about that on my Mouse Guard podcast. So next up, I wanted to talk about the index as well. We've already spoken about it earlier, but that's abysmal. That needs sorting out. And last of all, I wanted to talk about pre-gens. We just spoke about it earlier. So you said that some of them you need to pay for, and that's perfectly all right. It isn't. So I think that the thing about it is if you go on a Pinnacle website and you need to pay for pre-gens, right? So I bought the ETU box set for the princely sum of a lot of money, and then so I'm excited. I get this box set, right? It cost me loads of bloody money. I don't earn a lot of money, and I'm a poor guy. So if anyone wants to send me money, then get in touch. And you know what annoys me is that I spent all this bloody money. I've got the Class Ring Adventure, I've got the Degrees of Horror, I've got the main book, the GM screen, I've got the maps, I've got the bennies, I've got the dice. I look through the book and I'm really excited one evening because I'm going to run ETU for my mates, and I've got the free adventures from the website, and I'm looking through the books and I'm like, yeah, which pre-gens am I going to use? I bet they're really cool. I look through the book and like any other RPG on the planet, thinking there's going to be some pre-gens in here. And I go, they're not in here. Don't worry, I'll get it off the website. What do you mean you charge me $7 for pre-gens? Are you joking? And so
are they really $7?
They might
I thought they were $2 or $3.
They might be $3, but still, I've bought the bloody box set, and you're telling me it doesn't have pre-gens in there? Piss off! No way. I think that's a joke. I think if. Okay, fine. No, actually not fine. They're just characters, for goodness sake. I'm aware they've got art with them and stuff like this, but if you're giving away free adventures and stuff like this, you should have the characters with them. And I'm aware that okay, people have put a lot of time into those characters in the artwork, and they're beautiful. They really, really are. Okay, but they're to promote a bloody game. If I was a newcomer to this game and I'd never played it before, and I thought, this ETU looks cool, and you got the free adventure, and then they said $3 for pre-gens, I'd go, no, I'll play something else, thanks. $3.
I get you. It's like you go to the supermarket and you got this nice lady. She's like, "Would you like to try our new crackers?" And you're like, "Don't mind if I do." And then you go to grab it, and she says, "Well, it's gonna be $2, sir."
I would smack the tray out of her
hand. You're
hand.
like, no. You're like, no, I'm not gonna try your stupid crackers, and that's it.
Exactly. So obviously, in the end, I did buy them, but well, because I had to, right?
Makes you angry.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm angry about it. But like, I just don't get it, man. I don't get it. How could I think at least if you buy the damn box set, you should get a download code in there.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially with the a box set. I mean, that should be in there. There should even be like on printed out for you.
Yeah,
you should put that in there in the box.
Even their Shadowrun Beginner's box, which is the worst box I've ever bought in my life. Even that had some pretty cool pre-gens in there.
Because one thing they started doing, and that I got with the Goon, is they got this sheet. It's like a combat option cheat sheet. You get with it, which is pretty cool. But then, they could have given you maybe 5 or 6, so you can give them to your players too, instead of having that sheet being passed around at the table. And just with that sheet like that, they could put the pre-gens on that, and everybody would get it in their Kickstarter or box set. I mean, it makes sense to me. That wouldn't cost that much.
Right, that would be really nice. Maybe you could have combat options on one side, character on the other.
Yeah, that'd be a nice handout to give to people, your group, or even, like I said, going to conventions. That'd be a good way to promote it. But nobody listens to us, Harrison. We had that episode with things that should change about the new edition, and apparently they didn't listen to that, and they probably won't listen to us now. But it's a rant.
True. That's not true. Actually, there is one change that I suggested that was in the game. Yeah, I said.
Which one is it?
I said that they should create Savage Flash Gordon, and look what happened.
No, you didn't. You said it doesn't need Flash Gordon. It already has Slipstream. That's what you said.
I don't know. I don't know if that sounds like the kind of thing I would say. Well, anyway,
I think he's.
No,
you start sounding like a certain politician right now.
Well, I think that sounds like somebody here is a hypocrite, and I'm not a hypocrite, man. I would never say something that and then spend a load of money on Flash Gordon. All right, so thank you very much for listening to that section, guys. I hope that you enjoyed all of our listeners' rants and our rants. It's good to get it out once in a while, because I think as much as we love this game, there are little things that wind us up, and getting these things out there and discussing them means that we can learn from it and hopefully improve our game, and hopefully learn some ways to get better at GMing and playing, and of course rant about how our shelves don't look nice, which is of no use whatsoever.
Yeah, nothing worse than uneven bookshelf.
Exactly.
Right?
But for now, let's wrap this mother up.
Yo, motherfuckers, you all best back up. I always got a gun, I always come strap up. This ain't a game of pool, it ain't no time for no rack up. It's the motherfucking time for the wrap up. Anyone who disagrees will get smack up. See me back in school when I should have learned to add up. Found a gun on the floor, instead I picked that up. Anyway, sorry, I'm motherfucking back up. What I'm trying to say is it's time for the wrap up. Yeah, this one goes out to all the ladies and all the men out there. Everyone in the front row, grease up. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So thank you for listening to that podcast. I know we might have said some controversial stuff there, but if you want to lynch us, then we'll freely give out our addresses. Just send a message to thewilddie@gmail.com, or if you want to get in contact with us on Google+, just find us at the Wild Die Podcast, or we are over there on the Nerds International community as well, or we are over on Twitter at the Wild Die. And of course, if you want to chuck us a buck, then you can do so at patreon.com/the Wild Die. And of course, at this point, the Wild Die would like to thank our patrons.
Sean, Richard, Zobia, Tony Fanning, Rob Tao, John Peterson, Manuel Sams, David Maurice, Garrett, James Clark, Peter Beckett, Peter Adams, Tom Lewis, Henry Chalmers, Digital Dungeon Master, Eli Kurtz, Matthew J. Hanson, Watson Beats, John Steve, Pure Muggle, Owen Lee, Andy Hall, Christopher Gray, and Bubbles. Don't forget Guild, Dashard. He is a cool guy, but not as cool as the Farquhar. Yeah, that's right, motherfucker.
And one more thing about Patreon, like I mentioned earlier, we reached a $75 reward level, which means as long as we maintain that level, we'll be in touch with celebrity GMs, and once a month we're going to play one of their games. If you are one celebrity GM yourself and you're listening to the show and you'd like to come on the show and run your game for us, contact me as well, and we'll try to set this up. Next reward level, once we hit $100, what we'll do is that we'll review a book on the show. We'll have just a bonus episode for that. We'll use that money so that Harrison, Manuel, or even myself can purchase the book, read it, and have a whole bonus episode about it. And if you're a patron, you'll get to vote and even suggest the books yourselves, so that if there's a book you really want to learn more about, become a patron and help out with that. So, but yeah, we got a new patron.
Yes.
Yeah, people have weird handles.
The
Farquhar. So thank you, Farquhar.
Mother Farquhar.
Whoever you are. He's the mother Farquhar. All right. So yeah, thanks again for listening to the show. I guess I feel better about it. I'm gonna get over it.
I hope
I don't get I hope I don't get crucified for what I said, but it was just my opinion, and it doesn't mean that it's a bad product. But I'm not gonna play that one. Maybe it's gonna end up on eBay soon. I don't know. We'll see.
Do you want me to take some of the heat off of you by saying something controversial, and then we can end the show?
Do I?
Deadlands is
Yes.
There we go.
Wow.
Now bring on the hate. No, actually, I really should take that back. I love Deadlands, because that will get me hate.
All right, so this is Eric saying, never meet your heroes.
And this is Harrison saying, grapple the skies.
The Wild Die Podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by Pinnacle Entertainment Group or official Pinnacle licensees. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of the respected owners. All music and artwork is used with permission of Pinnacle Entertainment Group. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All of the items are the intellectual property of the Wild Die Podcast.